We're live. What's up, guys? Give me 1 second here. Pop out chat so I can see the questions. Pop that out, and we'll put that right there. Put that there. Put that there. Just getting set up here. Okay, so it looks like we're live. I can see the chat. Looks like audio is working. All right, we should be live. Should be rolling here. So good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel on this little early AM live video on YouTube. We just got done doing a few things this morning. I wasn't able to hunt this morning, so I'm gonna gear up for an afternoon hunt. We're gonna head at around 1:30, 2 o'clock, something like that. Get back in the woods and see what's moving. But I just wanted to come live. I had a little while this morning, a little downtime, so I wanted to see if you guys had any questions, and I wanted to touch on a couple things that we had some questions on over the past few days, and some follow-up on some videos that I recently released. But yeah, so first things first is what happened. I can't see the chat. There it is. Been a while since I went live on the computer. Ooh, we just got a picture from the stealth camera. See what we got here real quick. I don't remember now, it was an old one. All right, so I posted a video the other day about nocturnal deer and how it relates to pressure and why hunters are only seeing nocturnal deer on their property. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, and some people had some, I don't know, weird questions or weird responses to that video saying it wasn't true, and and all this other stuff, which I find bizarre. But we interfere with deer. We are the ones that make them nocturnal. Sure, there's other factors, why that they're nocturnal on your property. If it's not set up properly, there's lots of reasons, but the majority of reasons for that is because of human interference. The things that we do day in, day out on the property. And once hunting season hits, a lot of that gets even worse, because we're going in there, we're going in, checking trail cameras, and we're doing just things that that we do when we hunt. We check trail cameras, we walk to the tree, we climb the tree stand, we make noise, and we shoot a deer, we track it. All that stuff correlates to putting pressure on the deer, and it really messes up the property. And sometimes it's just the name of the game. Nothing you can do about it. It's just what happens. So deer are not naturally nocturnal. When it's not hunting season and you drive around through just on the road, where do you see? You see deer, they're in the fields, they're in daylight hours feeding. What changes? You get to that fall time, the testosterone, everything changes, they move a little bit, but they still have to feed. They feed 4 or 5 times a day, and the only thing that makes them nocturnal is human interference. We do it ourselves, and sometimes we have a hard time believing that, but that's honestly the real issue on why most deer go nocturnal, especially during hunting season. There's some places where, that I've hunted. I think I explained it in the video. There's a lot of times where, years ago, where I hunted farms, and they just, you don't see a deer. You don't, not in the spring, the summer, the winter, the fall. You just don't see deer during the daylight hours, whether in the fields or wherever. You just don't see deer. And why is that? Well, I think a lot of that too is what goes on around the property. What's happening on the outside perimeter of your property. And a lot of that is road hunters, poachers. I don't want to say hunters, but poachers that are driving around the property and they're spotlighting deer. I've seen this. I've seen it. I know that's what happens. And they go around the properties at nighttime with spotlights. And every time, especially at night, every time you spotlight a deer, because in some states you can, it's legal to do till it's like 11 o'clock at night or something. Obviously you can't shoot them or have a weapon with you. But in some states, I don't know what they are, but you can take a spotlight and you can spotlight deer at certain times. Like, sometimes I think they're up till like 10 p.m. Some states are like 11 p.m. that you can ride around and literally spotlight deer. And deer see that. They see that light at night, and that messes with them too. So if you're in an area that people do that a lot of times, majority of the deer are going to be nocturnal. We do this on a daily basis, and we are the ones that make them nocturnal. Deer don't actually go nocturnal. They still move and feed 5 times a day. They just may only be hitting your trail cameras at night. Yeah, that's true too. They may just be someplace else. And like I just said, a couple minutes ago, they do feed 4 or 5 times a day, and it's just what happens. They may not be moving far. They may get up, only move 50, 100 yards and feed, but a lot of times they do go nocturnal, and it's just a hard situation to figure out. How many acres you have, what's around there, if they're moving on your property or not moving on your property. But a lot of times, they may reduce themselves to, only feed a couple times a day. If they're high pressure areas, they might not move that much. So it's just a hard thing to figure out. But a lot of times they do go nocturnal. We push them nocturnal, from human interference. So it's just it's a tough pill to swallow. But yeah. And the other thing, video that I have coming out shortly. What's up, Steve? I haven't seen Steve in a while. What's up, buddy? Another thing is corn piles. Corn piles actually can make, deer hit those at nighttime because of pressure as well. And we do that, So when you dump, or if you're hunting over a bait site, or even a food plot for that matter, what we do, we walk in, we make noises. The deer, sometimes we push deer off the food plot or corn pile or bait site, whatever it is that you're hunting over. And we educate those deer. The deer can actually pattern us, So I've seen it where if you hunt a certain bait pile and you have another hunter, 100 yards away, and those deer that are in that area know that where that bait pile is, and they know that there's pressure on there, they see hunters or whatever, the deer will skirt that bait pile and they'll move 50, 75, 100 yards away from that bait because they pattern people. So I've seen that a lot. So a lot of times when you have a bait site on your property, it's good to have several. That way you can have several different tree stands, because honestly, moving 50 to 75 yards, 100 yards can make a huge difference, on your property. You wouldn't think that moving, that little distance could be huge, but a lot of times, depending on your, terrain and stuff, you can't see 75, 100 yards. So you don't know if deer are moving 75 yards away. So it's just, it's good to have multiple tree stands. Most of the time there's enough natural browse around where they bed to where they don't need to hit the food plots or ag fields until dark. Yeah, it just depends on your property. A lot of properties don't have browse. A lot of properties are closed canopy and they don't have a lot of browse around. Like one of my properties, it's 112 acres and it's all cedar trees, pines, and everything. So it doesn't allow a lot of sunlight to the ground. So there's not a lot of browse, and there's no agricultural fields around. So they're limited on food. So that's why we create, food plots and things like that to provide that extra, tonnage that they need. And when we first got this place, you would see a lot of deer that had the ribs like sunk in. They were showing just very skinny and just looked very unhealthy. But over the years of providing extra food for them, now you don't see that. You don't see the ribs showing. They filled out. They just look healthy. And it's funny because sometimes, throughout the spring and summer, even in fall, you'll have trail cameras out and you see all the deer have filled out, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you'll see one that's skinny, the ribs are all like sunk in, and that that deer is new to the area. They haven't been feeding for there for very long. Will you talk about baiting? Michigan is trying to remove the ban. Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos about especially Michigan, but there's a few other states. Maryland here, we can bait year round. There's no ban on it. Pennsylvania, there is a ban in some counties, I believe. Other counties you can bait in the off season, but it has to be removed 30 days prior. But as far as banning it completely, I mean, I don't really have a preference either way. I don't think that it should be banned. If people want to bait, then they can use it, but it's just a lot of talk going around that, and I don't really care, honestly, about baiting. If people want to do it, I think it should be allowed, but I don't have a preference, honestly, either way. Like here in Maryland, we can bait year round, and I honestly don't bait. Like I sometimes, up until 3-4 years ago, I used to use bait in corn all the time, but I've realized, throwing that bait out, you started to see less and less deer because you're excited, you dump that bait out and you want to hunt that stand, and you continue to bump the deer off that corn pile, and they just go someplace else and they hit that bait at nighttime. But I do believe if people want to use it, then they should be allowed to. I don't think there really should be a ban, for it. But I don't know. Philly Special 95. During the bow season, every time I hunted this one stand, the deer basically knew I was there, so I moved my stand into a more covered area, and I haven't seen a deer since. Yeah, like I said, they become conditioned to us. They can definitely pattern us. I've seen it, and sometimes moving 50 yards can make a difference, or like you just said, you might not see nothing at all, but it's that bait, like we just went back to. It's that there's nothing wrong with bait, but to use it properly, spread it out, have multiple, stand locations with the bait in it. That way you're not constantly pressuring that one stand. Kind of keep the deer guessing a little bit. to where you're not constantly just hunting that same stand. Yeah, obviously you could get lucky. It's all about luck, but and you could get lucky on that one stand, have a deer walk by. But usually I've found that if you get away from the bait, get away from hunting the bait all the time, you'll see more deer. But it also depends, what's going on around your property as well. Eric, random question. I have Thursday and Friday off work to hunt, getting over a pretty bad cold. Still have a bad cough. Is it worth risking, or should I reschedule my hunt? I wouldn't reschedule it. I would just go ahead and go. Years ago, they made this. I don't remember what it was called now, but I think you can buy it pretty much anywhere. And I have one somewhere. But like you said, years ago, I had a really bad cough and I went hunting, and they make this little device. It's probably about the size of like a hand warmer, and I can't remember who makes it, but it's literally a plastic device that's filled with foam or something. I think it's filled with foam or I can't remember. But you put it up to your mouth and you actually cough into this thing, and it's a cough suppressor. I can't remember who makes the daggone thing, but it costs like $10, and literally you would cough into this thing and you wouldn't hear a thing. It would just deaden the noise. And I took that with me, and if I had to cough, then I would just cough into this little device. It had a lanyard on it. You could put it around your neck or put it in your pocket or something. But I just kept it around my neck, and I would literally just cough into it, and it worked perfectly fine. I think I even shot a deer that day, but this was probably, I don't even know, 10 years ago, when that happened. But they do make it, they do sell it. I've seen people use it, since then. So I'm almost positive they still make it. Check Amazon. I think it was. I'm gonna look for you real quick. I think it was Hunter Specialties, I think, is who made it. Let's see. Right there, cough suppressor for hunting. It pops right up. Nope. Cough suppressor hunting. Maybe they don't make it anymore. Images. There you go, right here. Cough silencer. This is a different one. But it was something like this. I don't know if you can see that. But it's a little silencer that you just cough into, and it works fine. Ashman, that's hilarious. A cough suppressor. That's really what it is. It worked great too, and that's what it's for. That's a lot different than the one I had or have. But hey, you got a cough. You got a cough. So, the other part to this was food plots, and I've had a lot of questions over, I'd say, the past 2 months. That's really been coming in because it's obviously hunting season, and the question is, people planted a food plot and the deer don't eat it, and it's kind of weird because you think that if you plant a food plot, the deer are going to eat it, and it's I mean, I would think that too, but there's many reasons behind why they don't eat it. And I really want to emphasize this spring on food plots more than what I usually do in the spring. I want to make a couple different series, couple different playlists, but I kind of want to emphasize more on soil samples, and it's honestly a boring topic, but it's the most important topic is soil samples. And for some reason, I don't know why, I really don't know why people don't want to get a soil sample. I don't know why, but it's the simplest thing to do to have the best food plot, because I mean, they're like $12, you know, $14, $15. Sometimes you can order them online if you can't get them locally, but they may cost you like $20. But I would rather spend $20 on a soil sample than waste money on fertilizer that's not going to be effective, because it's better to spend more money on lime than it is fertilizer. So get a soil sample and read it, you know, read the soil sample. Majority of times it'll tell you exactly what to do. And if it tells you that your pH is low and you need to add lime, then you need to add lime. And a lot of folks, you know, will message me. They won't comment on YouTube, but they'll send me a message on like Instagram or something. And if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, it's Whitetail Obsession Outdoors. But I just want to throw that in there. But they'll send me a message on Instagram and say that, you know, they did this, this, and this, and this, and the food plot's not growing. You know, the deer aren't eating it. What's going on? And a lot of times it could be just too much pressure. So you put a little utilization cage in there to see the browse pressure. But 95% of the time, it's because that person did not do a soil sample, and they're just buying seed from a local store, hunting store, from buck on the bag seed that's for ryegrass, and they're just slinging it out. And if you can't get ryegrass to grow, there's something severely wrong, because it literally grows everywhere. And majority of that is a pH issue, and it's just weird, you know. If you don't get a soil sample, it's just really weird. But if you're finding that area and you're spending money on seed, fertilizer, and you're trying to make it effective, you have to take the extra step in a soil sample. And like I said, it's like $12. Read that soil sample. If you don't know what to do, then you can call the company. There's tons of YouTube channels on YouTube that talk about food plots, and you know, I'm sure if you make a comment on anybody's video, they'll probably be glad to help you. Explain the soil sample to you a little bit. You can email anybody, ask somebody, ask a friend, go to your local feed store and say, hey, what the heck does this mean? What is this soil sample telling me to do? And I'm sure that somebody would be glad to help you, including myself. But soil samples, if your pH is, I'd say, below a 6, you're going to have inadequate results when you plant. If it's a 6 or better, that's when you start getting better food plots. Anything below a 6, obviously you want close to 6.5, 6.8, 7. 7's your best. 6.8, you want to be somewhere around there. Is going to be your best. But lime is relatively cheap for long-term success and for a better food plot, because if your pH is better, you get a higher palatable plant. You get more tonnage per square foot. You get more tonnage per the entire food plot. And deer consume 4, 5, 6, 7 pounds of food per day, and it's a lot of food. So depending on how many deer you have in the area, you could possibly get wiped out. But in areas where you don't have a lot of food, you know, you might have to size that food plot a little bit bigger to help, you know, compensate for all the deer. But that goes back to soil samples. If your pH is very low and you're planting a food plot, it's going to be shunted. It's not going to grow to its optimal level. So you may lose, I'm just guessing here. You might lose a foot of growth on something, and a foot of growth for every plant in a half acre. That's a lot of tonnage per acre that you're missing out on because your pH is very low. So if the pH is low, the roots, the plants, the soil gets bound up and it can't release the nutrients to the plant, so the plants can't uptake it. So then you end up with a plant that's less palatable and less nutritious, and it's shunted. And the deer, deer have browse to eat on. And, when you plant a food plot, if it's not any more nutritious or palatable than anything else in the woods, why would the deer eat it? Right? So when you see deer feeding like in a field, in a pat, whatever it is, and they're browsing around, they're picking out the most nutritious food source. Deer are very picky eaters. There's like 700 and some different species of plants that deer consume throughout the country. Obviously, everything's not palatable at the same time. That's what's good about it. What's palatable today may not be palatable a month from now, and what's palatable a month from now, something else is going to be palatable a month later. So it all has different stages. But the whole point of a food plot is you're planting it for two reasons. One, to provide the deer with a nutritional food source, provide them extra nutrients. Two, you want to kill a deer. So if the food plot is not any more nutritious than anything else in the woods, why would the deer eat it? So that's why it's very important to correct it with lime, get the soil sample, fertilize it, and so forth, and you build on it. It's not a race, you just build on it each year, and you try to improve the soil over time, because honestly it takes 1-2 years, something like that. But the whole goal is to try to have something that is growing, that's in the ground 24/7, 365. That way there's something always giving to the soil. You always have that root base, and you're just benefiting the soil 24/7. That's why if you have, like, let's say you're planting like a brassica food plot, and when a deer takes a bite of a brassica, it doesn't grow back. So when those brassicas are gone, then you're left with nothing the whole winter, the whole season, until springtime, when you go in there and work it back up. That's why I like mixing in cereal grains, like winter wheat, oats are good, clover. I like mixing clover in as well in the fall. That way in the spring, it's one of the first things that grow, and you have that there for turkey season, because I love turkey hunting. I honestly never really turkey hunted until about 5-6 years ago, and I fell in love with it, and it's just something that I look forward to every winter or every spring, is turkey hunting. And what I like to do is I like to throw that clover in there, and in the fall it'll probably grow about 5-6 inches tall, and then it'll go dormant through the winter. But then in the spring you have that growth, and by the time, depending on what state you're in, you'll have clover growing for turkey season, and the turkeys will be all over it. And it's just so cool to plant something and see wildlife, eat it, thrive, benefit from it. It's just a cool feeling. Last season, my wife got tired of me hunting so much, so I had to choose between her and the deer. I sure do miss her. That's funny. Philly Special 95. That's pretty funny. I think I would choose the deer too, myself. Eric, thanks, man. You're welcome. But yeah, that's my spiel. That's my food plot spiel for today. It's 9:52. We got a few hours, and I'm heading back into the woods. But if anybody has any questions, fire them away. Be sure to answer them for you. I have a dry erase board up here. It's my new dry erase board, and I write video topics, ideas out throughout the weeks, days, or whatever, and that way I can focus on making those specific videos. And it all depends on questions, on YouTube videos. If I get a lot of certain videos, I'll get a lot of questions, or people will make a comment or something, and it'll give me a video idea. Freddie Lopez, how big of a food plot would work? There's no real answer to that, because it really depends on the area. It really depends on the area, how many deer you have in the area. If you have a high deer density, I mean, the food plot's going to be fairly large. But what I always say is, if you have anything less than an acre, anything less than an acre, and you have tons of agricultural fields around and tons of food around, then I don't think there's really any benefit to planting a legit spring summer food plot. Now, you could plant like buckwheat or something. I plant buckwheat every year. But if you like planting buckwheat, you could throw that in there in the spring and summer, and that'll help improve the soil and kind of prepare you for the fall planting. But if you're in an area that doesn't have food around, and you try to plant that spring summer plot and it's less than an acre, the deer are probably going to wipe you out. So you may just benefit from planting a fall plot, but it really depends on the area. Like where I'm at, there's no ag around, there's no beans, there's no corn, there's nothing around. The whole property is pine, cedars, it's shaded out. And so I have 3 acres, and we plant all 3 acres in food plots because we're providing that food to the deer. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, the ribs used to show a lot, and now that we feed them, they filled in, you don't see ribs anymore. So there's no real answer to that. The best thing to do would just be if it's a quarter acre, half acre, whatever it is that you want to plant, just plant it and put a cage in there, utilization cage, take it down and judge the browse pressure. If you have everything in that cage growing out the top and everything else is bare, you have a severe issue, with too many deer and not enough food. So it just depends. Clayton, what would be a good starter food plot looking to start next year? Clayton, how big is the area? How big is the food plot? Are you around a bunch of agriculture fields, bunch of food sources? There's a lot of answers to that, really. Clayton, what kind of food would be good to start a food plot? I'm surrounded by private land with no food around, but what's in the woods plus my feeders. How big's the area? Clayton, need to know how big the area is. How big of a food plot do you want to plant? Oh wow, 5 acres. So Clayton's got 5 acres. And you got no food around. I would probably do like an acre or 2 of a perennial clover. That way you have that clover base. Clover is pretty simple to grow. Soil samples, all that stuff, but if you can plant 2 acres of clover, or even 3, I mean, you got 5 acres. I mean, you could do 3 acres of clover. Do 3 acres of clover, perennial clover, and I mean, they're relatively low maintenance. I mean, if you mow them, once or twice a year, you'll be good, but you'll have that base, because I love clover. I have actually an acre of clover where I'm at. And deer, they just hammer it. But clovers are good, perennial clovers. The other 2 acres, I mean, you could just plant you could do like buckwheat, or, I mean, depending on your goals, I mean, you got 5 acres. I mean, you could do 5 acres of soybeans. You could do 5 acres of cowpeas. There's a lot of different options, but I would definitely throw that clover in there. That's just what I would do, especially if you're trying to provide a year-round food source. And then the other couple of acres, you could do, like I said, you could do buckwheat. You could even do cowpeas. You could do, and then in the fall, you could do brassicas. You could do 2 acres of winter wheat, oats. You could throw some rye in there. There's a lot of options. I mean, winter wheat pretty much grows anywhere. I mean, you could do a whole acre of winter wheat. That way it's one of the first things that come back in the following spring. I mean, you have a lot of options to do with 5 acres. A lot of options. That could be a serious food frenzy there. I mean, every year, like I have 3 acres of food plots that we plant. Next year it's going to be a little bit more, but with those 3 acres, I kind of mix it up. I still keep my 1 acre of clover there, because I want to provide that clover there. I want to have that there for turkeys, and deer hit it all year long. So I have that base there. The other 2 acres, well, I want 2.25 acres left. I kind of mix it up, I'll plant buckwheat in there. I'll plant cowpeas. I'll plant just different things, and just mix it up, see what works better. I'm always planting something that gives to the soil, for many months out of the year. And I'm also just planting different species. I love planting sunflowers and cowpeas and buckwheat, clovers, sun hemp. We plant a lot of Egyptian wheat for screening around the plots. I mean, I just love mixing it up, just having fun, because the whole thing is that a lot of people will get like stressed out about food plots, but the whole thing is just to have fun. Just go out and just plant something. Just go have fun, see what works, see what doesn't work, just mix it up. But the main goal is always to have fun with it and to try to improve the soil over time. It doesn't happen overnight. You need a full year to 2 years of growing to really improve the soil, to increase the organic matter and micronutrients in the soil. It takes a good year, 2 years, improve the pH. Have something in there that's green and growing year round. That's a main goal. That's another goal, is to have something there year round growing. And I'm excited. I'm excited every growing season, just to get out there, mix it up, enjoy it, throw some seed out, and watch deer consume it. And that's the whole goal on any of it, is just to have fun. Well, 10 o'clock. I got some errands to do. I got post office run on some orders that came in over the website. So I'm going to get that done and gear up for this afternoon's hunt. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy the day. Enjoy the rest of the week. I'm on vacation. And I got a couple more videos coming out this week and next week. And then next week, or the following week, we head to Kentucky for, I think, 8 days. So I'll be out there hunting with Jeff from Antler Grow out in Kentucky for, like I said, like 7, 8, 9 days, something like that. Then we come back, we got Thanksgiving, and then we got rifle season that starts. So good luck to all you guys. Thanks for following along, and I'll see you guys on the next one. See you guys.